Hey guys, Andy here, and I'm here to bring you all things mundane and makeup related. If that's your vibe, I'd love it if you would subscribe to be part of my little slice of the internet. And in today's video, we are going to be introing another project. This is going to be the Revolving Door Eyeshadow Project Pan. So if you want to hear all about this project and see what palette I will be bringing in, then let's go ahead and just jump right on into it. So, for this project, I'm going to be taking a palette that I have in my collection that's been used before. My Pile of Shame project that I introed is for all of the palettes that I've never used. These are for palettes that I've used. A couple of them I've only used once, but for most of these palettes I've used several times. We will pick them at random. Obviously, I have Tiny Decision app here. And what I'm going to be doing is creating 2 looks with the palette to determine if it's something that I still want to keep in my collection or not. And I will be using a grading scale that Beauty and Beyond, I will leave her channel listed in the description box, came up with. I adjusted it a little bit to fit my channel and my collection a little bit better, but we'll get into all of that in just a moment. But if any palette gets a 6 out of 12 or lower on the grading scale, it's getting decluttered because we don't need to be keeping things around that I don't like. And based on the grading scale, if it gets a 6 out of 12 or lower, I don't like them. So this is what the grading scale is going to be. I might make a graphic for it and pop it up. If I have, it'll be there because I know some people like to read things and see things as a graphic instead of just hearing them. I'm also one of those people, so I will try to do that. Hello, Blazemere. He's under my desk. Let me do that. So, the 4 things that we will be grading on are cost, versatility, performance, and preference. So cost, first is going to be what the palette cost. Not necessarily what I paid for it, but just what it retails for. That's what it's going to be this year, which I know isn't fair to the palette really to be grading it on how much it costs. But that is something, since I'm on a low buy, to take into consideration. Like how much, not quite necessarily, but how much should I pay for the palette? Next year in 2025, I will be doing cost per use because I will be tracking my usage on these palettes. So when I do this grading scale again, it will be cost per use, which I think will be a little bit more helpful. But for the sakes, this year it'll be cost. And so to get 4 points, it's going to be $0 to $20, a cheaper palette. 3 points is $20 to $30, 2 points, $30 to $50, and 1 point is any palette $50 or more. For versatility, which is my opinion of what I can do with the color story, getting 4 points, it's super versatile. I can do many things with the color story. 3 is pretty versatile, 2 is kind of versatile, and 1 is not versatile. Now, again, it's all up to my opinion, but some monochromatic palettes are going to be very versatile for me because I love the color, whereas other monochromatic palettes would be not versatile because I don't like the color. You know, it's going to be one of those things. Your opinion and my opinion, where we score things like that are going to be different, but that's how the cookie crumbles. It's my collection. Performance. So this is going to be based on, longevity, kick up in the pan, fallout on my eyes when I'm doing my eyeshadow, things like that. A 4 is great, 3 is good, 2 is okay, 1 is bad. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then number 1, the last category is preference. And this one is very opinion-based, but it's, preference in just because it's a good palette, it might not be for me. Like, the palette as a whole, it just might not work for me. Like, there might be textures in there that I don't like. The color story overall might not be for me. things like that. So number 4 would be in my comfort zone completely. Like the palette as a whole, good palette. Number 3 is close to my comfort zone. 2 is a little uncomfy, but it's still a good palette, usable. And number 1 is out of my comfort zone and not for me palette. So those are the 4 categories. Like I said, anything that gets a 6 out of 12 or lower gets the boot, leaving the collection. So we're going to pick one palette at a time. Obviously. And as I said earlier, we're going to do 2 looks with it. However long it takes me to create 2 looks. Like, I'm not going to try to rush 2 looks. Like, that's not the point of this. The point is to do this thorough review and figure out if I want to keep these in my collection. But I have, how many palettes out of my collection have I used? We have 62 options. So, let's see what our first palette. I'm excited. What's our first option gonna be? ABH Riviera. Okay, it's been a very long time since I have touched this palette. Riviera. Now I know that I like the shimmers. Let me grab the palette. So this is what she looks like. I love the packaging. Like, the like, sailory stripes have always gotten me. Now, I threw my brush away. I don't like the double-ended brushes that would come in the ABH palettes. I don't really like double-ended brushes to begin with, but I didn't like the ones that came in these palettes. Because, like, the Urban Decay ones are really good. The Profusion ones are really good, but these ones I didn't like. But this is the color story. And we're going to do some swatches together, I feel, and just take some notes. Take some notes. So I've always hated that this is a matte white and the rest are shimmers, because we have such a light peachy shade here. I feel like you don't need both. And that's always bothered me. So we have Sails. And then all these shimmers are so creamy. And then we have Yacht and Seychelles. I have always thought these shimmers are just to die for. They're so pretty. We have Palermo, Seaside, and Inheritance. Seaside is probably one of my favorites, and then we'll get to my favorite. Seaside is probably my second favorite shimmer. This one's my favorite, Mediterranean. And then we have Estate and Cabana. Getting into the mattes. See, because that's my thing. Like, why do we need that and this shade? Like, I don't know. I don't use a matte white like that. We have Coastline, Bahamas, and Monte Carlo. Who that pink? Who, buddy? Them pinks. They be pinking. And then we have Canes and Palm. So there's the palette as a whole. It still performs beautifully. There's only really kick up in Monte Carlo. But the shimmers were so, like, they had the feeling of a Super Shock. They were so wet and creamy, and, like, they're so foiled and sparkly. I am so excited to create at least 2 looks with this. I am so ready. So that's going to be the first palette that we will be doing for this Revolving Door project pan. And the reason why we're calling it Revolving Door is because either these are Revolving Door on their way out, or they're gonna on their way back into my drawers. So that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys are excited. I will be at the end of the month, maybe. I don't know if I'm going to do this monthly or if I'm just going to update you guys when I've completed my 2 looks and we have things to talk about. So let me know, do you want monthly updates or do you just want me to update when I've hit the 2 looks and then we can talk about what's happening with the palette? What would you prefer? But otherwise, any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments down below. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.